Alright, so as you can see from the title, the episode today is called Why Did Leia Leave Han Solo's Dice Behind? And the title is rather short and concise. Again, the title presupposes, of course, that she left them behind on purpose, which is a presupposition. We don't have to necessarily presume that. It's certainly possible that she didn't leave them behind on purpose. It's possible she left them by accident. So technically you could argue maybe I should have called the video Why Did Leia Leave the Dice Behind, if in fact she left them behind on purpose, which is, long and tedious. So I just simply shortened it and made it this type of supposition. Now, that said, why are we looking at this problem? It's just a pair of dice. Like, what the hell? Why are we devoting the whole video to the dice? Now, the fact of the matter is, it's a quite tedious part of the film, a tedious part of the franchise. By and large, I would argue that the vast majority of moviegoers don't know a damn thing about the dice, the backstory about the dice, their relevance to anything, who they belong to, where have we seen them before. Probably really don't care. You could argue it's more of a geeky, trivial type of phenomenon that people have been following along off and on throughout the franchise. So you can argue, what does it really matter though in the big scheme of things? Well, ordinarily we could simply, dismiss it if it weren't for the fact that they sort of keep bringing it up from time to time. All right, and now in the Solo movie, they made quite a bit thin about it. It factors in quite prominently. So now, it's been featured. It was featured in this film. It was given a fair amount of weight and significance in the film. So, it now becomes a point of debate and conjecture. Just what are the relevant aspects? So it becomes a point of conjecture. Just what is the significance of these dice? Why are they so important? Why are they making a big emotional significance of it? That she left them behind, that Kylo Ren found them, and he, pondered about them and had some type of quote-unquote moment while he was holding them. Why are they making such a fuss about the dice? All right, so that begs the question. Okay, let's talk about the dice. All right, so the first question we're going to ask. Okay, so did she leave them behind on purpose or, by accident? Now, I think it's fair to say she left them behind, intentionally. I don't think they fell out of her pocket and she misplaced them and she laid them down, forgot about them. She had them. Luke gave them to her. So it stands to reason that if they are found on the ground, it's because she, left them there for whatever reason. Now, the whole transaction of Luke giving her the dice, I covered very extensively in the video. Did Leia know Luke was a force projection? If you want to know more about that, I refer you back to that video. It's very comprehensive. And as you recall, Luke gives her the dice puts them in a palm. He goes away. He takes care of what he needs to take care of. And then we don't see them again until Kylo Ren and his compatriots basically storm the barracks, the headquarters, and he finds these dice on the ground, on the floor. He picks them up, and actually at that moment he has a little connection with Rey, but at the end of this little connection, the dice vanish. Now, the question would be, why did she leave them there? Why did Leia leave these dice there? Now, in our minds, we're thinking, well, I mean, she couldn't have left them there on purpose. What would be her reason for that? These are Han Solo's dice. They belong to her husband or whatever he was to her, and they're very significant to him, and by proxy should be significant to her, and she has some powerful attachment to them. You would think that she would hold on to them, forever, never let them go. It's incomprehensible that she would misplace them, let alone just leave them on the floor for any old body to find. It just really would not make much sense there. Now, having said that, let's step back. Now, we're assuming all this stuff about the emotional attachment, but what actually do we know about her emotional attachment to these dice? Yes, she held them. She seemed to recognize that they held some significance to Han Solo, but what do we know about her attachment to the dice? Do we even know that she knows about the dice? Where has it been predicated that she has any type of attachment to the dice? Where have we seen her with the dice? I mean, frankly, she's never mentioned the dice. Solo's never mentioned the dice to her, to our knowledge. We have no foundation to even know that she has any attachment to the dice, let alone knows about the dice, or any of that. So to say, oh no, she wouldn't leave the dice behind because why would she? How could she? There's such an emotional. No, how do we even know that there is an emotional attachment? What is your foundation for presupposing all this emotional attachment between her and the dice? We just simply don't know what significance these dice to her. Now, we know that they were presumably on the Millennium Falcon for literally decades. Where would she interact with them? Now you're going to say, oh no, but see, back in episode 4, she was flying around on the Falcon and she probably saw them dangling there. Okay, that was before her and Han Solo were even a thing. So she could just easily ignore those things. And when they was adults, we have no foundation for knowing that she was on the Falcon at all. So at the end of the day, there's no documented, bona fide, verified, film-based attachment between her and the dice. So therefore, she could certainly take the attitude, okay, look, I know about these dice, I've heard about the dice, I've seen them casually, I've seen them on the Falcon, I don't even know how they were important with anything. If I leave him behind, it's no big deal to me. I don't even know how much of a big deal it would be to him. It's just not that important. She just could have a very casual attitude. There's no reason why she could not. And then going on as a practical matter, she could say, they're cool. I get it. Belong to my late husband. It's like the only thing that I have to remember him by. But as a practical matter, how's she going to carry him around? I mean, It's not like she has a little handbag or a purse or anything like that. They're scrambling to get off the Raddus before he gets shot down or whatever. They're trying to escape. They didn't take no belongings. She didn't take a laptop. She didn't take no pictures or nothing. They was literally getting on them transporters with the clothes on their back. Literally. Nothing else. No carry-ons. No little bags. No plastic bags or anything. Nothing like that. They were just getting on with their stuff. So they was traveling super light when they got on the crate. And then when they were transferred to the Falcon, still super light. Had these garments on, like these robe-like dresses that she was walking around in. From what I could tell, didn't have no pockets or nothing. I never saw her reach into a pocket to get nothing out. When you think about it, why would her dress need pockets? Oh, what do you mean? Why? Of course it would need. No. Why would her thing need pockets? She's not carrying around no cell phone. She's not, carrying around car keys, or house keys, or ATM card. She's not carrying around no loose change or nothing. So she don't need. She don't need no money. She don't gotta buy anything. She don't need pockets. So she probably had no pockets, nothing to put, to put the dice in. She just look at. I would like to take them with me, but don't really have a convenient place to put them. So I get it. I held them. Spent some time with them, but I gotta just leave them behind. Or she kind of forgot about them. So you could go down that path, that logic, to say that she, just didn't feel she wanted to take them, and she just simply left them behind. No grand logic, no master plan, no kind of a emotional strategy. She couldn't possibly know that Kylo Ren was going to be the first person to pick him up from the floor and get all sentimental about him. She could not have possibly known that as a strategy to have purposely left them. So that that would be the argument for her simply leaving them behind as a practical matter, not with any grand theory or purpose or strategy, just as a practical matter, just decided she didn't want to take them along. Also, she knew they was going to disappear anyway, so what would be the point in taking them along? There's going to vanish one way or another very soon. She didn't know exactly when, but she knew they were force projection dice, so it's not like there was the real thing. So I'm not going to get emotionally attached to these fake dice. I mean, that's not the point. I very well may encounter the real dice. So these are just little projected dice. Yeah, I get it. There should be sentimental attachment to them, but these are the projected dice. So no, I'm not going to get no emotional attachment to projection dice that are going to disappear within like a few minutes. That's stupid. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to there's no purpose for me making a big deal of taking them with me. Okay, the second notion would be, oh no, this was all, she thought this through, and she had a master plan about it. She had gone through a whole thought process and said, you know what, I'm gonna leave him behind. I'm pretty sure Kylo Ren's gonna get him, blah blah blah. And she, had a method behind intentionally, purposely leaving them behind for him. That would be that theory, okay? Okay, so if we're going to look at the thought process on why she would leave them behind intentionally, with the intention of Kylo Ren picking them up and having some type of emotional impact, we really then have to just break down the whole history of the dice. I mean, what do we know about these dice? Let's just get it all out there now and just break the whole damn thing down about these dice. Go back to square one and just vet out the damn dice. So first, let's just go with what we know from, the on-screen timeline of these dice. So what we do know is that they first appeared in Episode 4, New Hope. Most people who've gone back and researched it seem to feel it was pretty much in like maybe no more than maybe one scene where it showed us a shot of them in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and the dice were hanging there on the edge of the frame, barely visible. There, no more than this one scene. No one talked about the dice. No one took down the dice. No one said anything about the dice, except for the fact that they were visible, and most people probably paid absolutely no attention to the dice. It's probably people who had to go back and freeze frame it and look for this scene that had the dice, blah blah blah, before people even knew about the dice. But as happens with a lot of these movies, people point out everything in a scene and try to figure out the significance of it. So yeah, they found these dice, and to my knowledge, that's when they first appeared in a film. No one said nothing about and to be perfectly honest, I don't know the backstory on how they even got there. Now you're gonna say, oh yeah, but now they figured into a narrative about the dice and his life and blah blah blah. I don't know how they got there. I wouldn't be surprised, to be perfectly honest, that it was just a little inside joke and some prop guy just put the dice in there. No big deal, just thought it was funny. No one's gonna realize it. Had nothing to do with the plot or nothing. No one was thinking that. He just thought it was be a funny thing to put the dice there. And now that people have picked up on it, they say, okay, now we pretty much now have to sort of incorporate it into some type of logic for the movie and build some type of history with. I wouldn't be surprised if that was really, the genesis of these dice being there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? If anyone agrees with me on that, comment down below. But I would not be the least bit surprised that, that's how the dice got there in the first place, rather than some master plan where the dice had a history and I'm sure that when they wrote that movie, this idea that they was involved in a card game with Lando Calrissian wasn't on anybody's mind. That's just my thought there. But at any rate, that's where we first see the dice. And that's the only time we see the dice in that whole trilogy, that one little scene. Now, frankly, aside from people talking about it, they're not in the prequels. They're not in Force Awakens, even though my understanding is that they did shoot some film with the dice, but we'll cut it out. Maybe we'll see it down the road. But they were not in Force Awakens. We do see them in The Last Jedi. And the first time we see them, Luke comes on with the Falcon. He sees the dice. He reaches up with his gloved hand and brings them down. It's like a close-up shot. And if you listen to the audio commentary with Rian Johnson, he even, fun fact, it was his hand that pulls the dice down. And in his words, he calls it like his cameo. I believe he refers to it as his only little cameo in the movie. That was a close-up of his hand. It was gloved. And then we see Luke sort of, look at these dice with some type of emotion, and we don't really know what he does with the dice after that. The next time we see the dice in the film is when he appears to be handing them to Leia when they finally meet on Crate. We don't know what Leia does after that, but the next time we see the dice, they are literally in Kylo Ren's hand. Interestingly enough, we don't see him pick them up off the floor, and you kind of wonder whether this was on purpose. But he does enter into like this back room of wherever the headquarters, and you see him from the back. He has a big cape on. He kneels down. For what reason you don't know, but at that moment that he kneels down, seemingly he sees something on the floor. But at that moment he has like a force connection with Rey. That's like their last little force connection. She's standing in the doorway of the Falcon. Then they have some type of connection. Then she closes the door. Then they cut back to him, and then he looks down and he's holding the dice in his hands. And then we see the dice vanish, and that's the last time we see the dice. Rian Johnson says about this moment in his audio commentary, just to give us a little foundation on his thinking on what that moment meant to Kylo Ren or to anybody, or its significance in the film, just to put this discussion in some context. So this is what he says, and I'm quoting. It was actually in the edit room that the idea of the dice disappearing came up. We tried it, and there was something really evocative about it, and it made sense. If Luke brought them with him, that they would be not really there. And there was something very sad and beautiful about them kind of fading away in his hand, kind of a symbol of his father, unquote. So clearly there was the sense that him picking him up was going to evoke some type of memory of his father in some way, and the idea being that him picking up the dice is going to bring back memories of he and his father in, I'll say, better times, when he was still Ben Solo, the good Ben Solo, and before he took a path to the dark side, and it was meant to reinstill some sense of humanity and his love of family values and morals and ethics and good upbringing and the values that his father had, and make him wonder why he was going down this path and where did he go wrong. And why did he kill his father? And maybe I'm a bad person after all. And what has this all come to? Why am I doing this? How did I get here? Is this what this all has come to? Maybe I'm on the wrong path. Is this the right thing? Maybe I need to rethink all of this. Maybe Leia was right. And maybe Luke was right when we were out there arguing, a few minutes ago. Snook, was very powerful and inspirational in one sense, but there's certain sides to him that I can't really fully embrace. Is that where I want to take my life? And I think that was the ideology that Leia had when she left the dice and tried to evoke, these type of thoughts in Kylo Ren. Now, the interesting point there, though, is the key point there in all this is why would she think that the dice would bring up all these emotions? That's really the question I would have. And as you're watching the movie, if you've seen all the movies, there's really no foundation for us to believe or to understand the rationale for him having any kind of emotional connection to the dice. In fact, as I said, 99% of viewers who walked into that movie, especially anybody under the age of 25, would have no clue what the dice even meant to anything or anybody, and certainly to us, we would not have any obvious knowledge of a connection between Kylo Ren and the dice. We've never seen Han Solo and Kylo Ren talk about the dice. Kylo Ren never talked about the dice. We've never seen Kylo Ren with the dice. We know that the dice were of some relevance and importance to Han Solo. But to be perfectly honest, it's not even clear to us what the connection was with the dice. I mean, yes, they've been with him through most of his adult life. We get it. They've been mostly lucky, or they've been a part of a number of events in his life where luck played a part and the dice were with him. But we don't know the backstory of the dice, or where he got them, or anything like that. Let's try to dissect this a little further. So what actually do we know about the dice and the backstory of the dice? So I'm going to go to Wikipedia for a lot of this, but according to Wikipedia, and I'm going to sort of read and summarize at the same time. So they were a pair of iridium plated gold dice that Han Solo used to play the Sabak variant known as Corellian Spike. And we first saw him with these dice with the help of the Solo movie, where we got a little backstory in his timeline. And when he stole a speeder in the very beginning of the movie, he hung the dice on a speeder, which led to a chase scene and whatnot. And while escaping Corellia, they're like in the I'll call it the airport, or whatever the hell thing that was. He gave the dice to Kira, his friend, with whom he was in the speeder, and they were trying to escape together. But for whatever reason, they had to sort of split up, and one had to go one way, and the other had to go the other. And he gave the dice to Kyra as a symbol of good luck. Yet sadly, she was captured by Malok, and she kept the dice with her. And lo and behold, 3 years later, on planet Kessel, they reunited, much to his surprise. and she still had the dice to his surprise, at which time she gave the dice back to him during a mission to steal the coaxium from the Kessel mines. And then later in the Solo movie, during a game of Spike against Lando Calrissian, Solo won the Millennium Falcon, in part due to the dice. Now, to be quite honest, yes, I did see the Solo movie. I'm a little vague on that point. I don't have a Blu-ray of the Solo movie. The movie, frankly, came out a little while ago. This movie, this video is being done many months before you're seeing it. So the Solo movie did not come out, but not yet too long ago. And the Blu-ray is not even out. So it's not like I can just go back and watch it and refresh my memory about the interplay of the dice. But let's just say that the dice had something to do with the card game and the winner and the Falcon, just because it's not that important, but I do believe that it came in, it has some relevance to that game. In any case, he kept the dice, seemingly for good luck. He hung them in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and to our knowledge, they stayed there, ever since. Now, that said, any relation between Kylo Ren and the dice would be purely speculative. We have no film foundation for a connection there. We don't see the years that Ben Solo, we see none of Ben Solo's life. We don't see any flashbacks. We don't see them playing in the backyard together or any of that. You can say, oh yeah, but it stands to reason that Ben Solo, Han Solo would invite him onto the Millennium Falcon, and they would sit in the cockpit and they joke around, and maybe he even flew Ben Solo around the block and just as for recreation, and they probably pointed out the dice, and he saw them on his dad's cockpit of the Millennium Falcon all the time, and sometimes he brought the dice in the house and they would play around and joke about. You could speculate about all that. I get it. Is all that plausible? Sure, yeah, it's plausible, but we're just purely speculating. We have no foundation to know any of that, so we can't say what exactly Kylo Ren's emotional attachment to these dice would be, if any. For all we know, Ben Solo was a troublemaker. That's why they sent him off to Jedi school with Luke Skywalker. Maybe he was always on punishment. Maybe he was always on timeout. Maybe they didn't have permission to come on the Millennium Falcon because he was a troublemaker. We don't know all that. We're just speculating that, because Han Solo had him and he just automatically connects him with his dad. Look, we've taken the rosy speculation aspect of it. We don't know any of that. It's just pure, unadulterated speculation. And now we're asked, 30 years later, to make a leap of faith that when he sees the dice, in 2017, he's experiencing some kind of a emotional moment. I mean, yeah, okay, so you just have to presume that that's there, but we just don't have any foundation for that from the movies. It kind of makes sense, but we're just taking it on face value that there was some kind of emotional attachment. Now, that said, gone doing some more research, I did uncover some information that connects the dots a little better than our speculation. And again, I'm going to read from Wikipedia, and also add that this is sourced from Star Wars: The Last Jedi expanded edition. Which I don't have, so I'm relying that this sourcing is accurate. Well, this is what they say about Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, in his early years, infant years. While he was still in his mother's womb, Leia Organa could feel him through the Force. She likened him to a living band of light that sometimes dimmed and was sometimes thrust through with a vein of darkness. Following his birth, there were contradictory rumors that Ben's birth took 3 days. Another tale claimed that it was a fast and painless birth. There were also rumors that Ben was born with a shock of black hair and a full set of teeth. Though Han lacked the same Force bond that Organa had with her son, he comforted himself with the fact that he had a fatherly bond with Ben. As a toddler, now listen carefully, as a toddler, Ben enjoyed playing with the gold dice that belonged to his father and would often follow him around. Let me read that again. As a toddler, Ben enjoyed playing with the gold dice that belonged to his father and would often follow him around. All right, well, this is the first I ever heard of that. I'm not doubting it. I presume it's well sourced. Probably, I'm presuming that in the novelization they gave that background information. That's what they're presenting officially. And if that's accurate, then that really ties. That's really very new information that we couldn't. Well, obviously we couldn't get that from the movies. What I just read fills in a very critical aspect of his childhood, and especially his relation to the dice. Now, if all that is accurate, okay. Now it makes more sense, that there's going to be an emotional attachment to the dice. Okay, now I can get on board more reliably with the idea that him picking up the dice is going to throw him back into, when he was a child, when he was 2 or 3 years old, remembering the dice and his dad, when everything was fun and rosy and happy times. Okay, now that's really more solid evidence that he would have an emotional connection to the dice. Okay, now it makes more sense of Leia's thought process in leaving the dice behind. And now it seems even more so that she would leave him behind on purpose, believing that he would find them. And this is her way of having him reckon back to those times when he was a good guy, blah 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 blah, like I went, as I explained before earlier. Now that all makes more sense. And I would say this little passage that I read there about his childhood playing with the dice, that pretty much firms up the idea in my mind that she left them on purpose, knowing that they would have that type of impact with him. Undoubtedly would have some impact with him. Having said that, I just want to point out a little aside here, take a little moment to mention this, because I would be deficient in not bringing us into having a discussion about the dice and not just pointing out a little, I don't know if you would call it trivia, but just to point out, yes, we know that the dice first appeared in episode 4. The dice were recreated for Force Awakens, but did not appear in the final version of the film. Again, I'm reading from Wikipedia. It said that in those 2 films, the dice look much like regular 6-sided dice, where the signs were numbered with the dots. However, for their first close-up in The Last Jedi, you will notice, and also in Solo, if you noticed, the design was changed to use these, exotic symbols instead of like the traditional dice. So, to the title, why did Leia leave the dice behind? I think we've covered it. Yes, I think it was on purpose. Yes, it was for the reasons we talked about. Yes, we thought that it was intended to have some type of emotional impact and try to inspire him to reflect upon himself and all those things that we talked about. I think that was clearly her purpose. So, I'm going to end up here, guys. Hope you enjoyed this analysis of this little point and my presentation and backstory about the dice. I'm sure a lot of you know a lot of this information already, or, like me, I knew very little about this whole dice. I'm not going to call it a controversy, but the whole issue about the dice. I'm sure people knew about the dice, knew something was going on about the dice, but didn't fully understand, the implications of the dice and this, that, and the other, and including myself, until I actually researched the backstory about the dice. So I hope this was helpful. If you thought this was helpful, leave me a comment down below. As I said, if you're enjoying the content so far and want to see more from the package, please subscribe so that the future videos show up very readily in your feed and you don't have to look for it. And also, if you enjoyed the contents from today, I encourage you to hit the like button, and I will see you next time.